Speaker, this bill arrives in this Honorable House at a time when terrorism stalks the world. It has shaken the world to its very core, and it is therefore imperative that the nations in comity strive to implement measures and to put measures in place to combat this new challenge, this new enemy. It doesn't come in the form of mighty armies. A single individual could be deadly. And so it is important that we have a regime of laws that could in some way or in large measure help us to protect ourselves from terrorist acts and the perpetrators of such heinous crimes. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, coming after Paris, San Bernardino, they too came after Mali and the atrocities committed by Boko Haram in Nigeria and other parts of Africa. It is time for nations to stand up in the fight against terrorism. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, this bill that is before this Honorable House seeks to criminalize terrorism in its various forms and to provide for the detection, prevention, prosecution, and punishment of persons involved in terrorist activities in and outside of Guyana. Mr. Speaker, the United Nations Security Council Resolution 1566 of 2004 gives a definition for terrorism as criminal acts, including against civilians, committed with the intent to cause death or serious bodily injury, or taken of hostages with the purpose to provoke a state of terror in the general public, or in a group of persons or particular persons, intimidate a population, or compel a government or an international organization to do or to abstain from doing any act. Mr. Speaker, in this bill, clauses 58 and 59 seek to address the deficiency identified for FATF Recommendation 35 in Guyana's Mutual Evaluation Report, which was first published on July 25, 2011. Recommendation 35, Mr. Speaker, requires countries to sign and ratify or otherwise become a party to and fully implement the Vienna Convention, the Palermo Convention, and the 1999 United Nations International Convention for the Suppression of the Financing of Terrorism, in bracket, the Terrorist Financing Convention. Guyana, Mr. Speaker, acceded to the United Nations Convention Against Illicit Trafficking in Narcotic Drugs and Psychotropic Substances, the Vienna Convention, on the 19th of March, 1993. The United Nations Convention Against Transnational Crime, the Palermo Convention, on the 14th of September, 2004, and the International Convention for the Suppression of the Financing of Terrorism, the Financial Terrorism Convention, on the 12th of September, 2007. However, Mr. Speaker, it is important to note that since the publication of Guyana's Mutual Evaluation Report in 2011, the CFATF, that is the Caribbean Financial Action Task Force, has published 9 follow-up reports for Guyana, in which Recommendation 35 was stated as being outstanding. Presently, Mr. Speaker, Articles 7, 8, 10, and 11 of the Vienna Convention, which are required to be reduced into our municipal law by Recommendation 35, provide as follows. Article 7 deals with mutual legal assistance in criminal matters. Article 8 deals with the transfer of proceedings. Article 10 with international cooperation and assistance for transit states. And Article 11 deals with controlled delivery. B, in Article 1.1 of the Terrorist Financing Convention, defines the terms funds, state or government facility, and proceeds of terrorism. And the Palermo Convention, Articles 7, 18, 19, 20, 24, 25, and 29, 7 deals with the measures to combat money laundering. Article 18 deals with the mutual legal assistance. Article 19 deals with joint investigations. Article 20 deals with special investigative techniques. Article 24 deals with the protection of witnesses. Article 25 deals with assistance to and protection of victims. And Article 29 deals with training and technical assistance. Mr. Speaker, as I mentioned earlier, since the publication of Guyana's Mutual Evaluation Report in 2011, these are the following reports in relation to Recommendation 35 and Guyana's position in respect of compliance or non-compliance. Day 2. Guyana's first follow-up report published in November 2011, the authorities reported that the examiner's recommendations are being considered by the relevant authority. This recommendation is therefore outstanding. In Guyana's second follow-up report published May 2012, it is said that the authorities reported that the examiner's recommendation for the competent authorities to take steps to fully implement the Vienna Convention, the Palermo Convention, and the Terrorist Financing Convention has been forwarded to the Ministry of Legal Affairs, which will refer the matter to the relevant authority for consideration. The recommendation involves policy issues. The recommendation is therefore outstanding. Third, Guyana's third follow-up report published in November 2012 is that recommendation remains largely outstanding. Guyana's fourth follow-up report published May 2013, again, it is reported by CFATF that the recommendations remain largely outstanding. In Guyana's fifth follow-up report published November 2013, it says that authorities have advised that a bill has been drafted which has incorporated certain of the outstanding articles of the Palermo, Vienna, and Terrorist Financing Convention. As such, this recommendation remains largely outstanding. Guyana's sixth follow-up report published May 2014. The authorities have advised that the United Nations Convention bill has been drafted, the brand new bill, I suppose, which has incorporated certain of the outstanding articles of the Palermo, Vienna, and Terrorist Financing Conventions. At present, the authorities have advised that research is being conducted to ensure that the provisions of the proposed bill do not duplicate existing legislation. As such, this recommendation remains largely outstanding. Guyana's seventh follow-up report, published November 2014. In the last report, the authorities advised that research was being conducted to ensure that the provisions of the proposed bill do not duplicate existing legislation. As such, this recommendation still remains largely outstanding. Guyana's eighth follow-up report published May 2015. May 2015, that momentous month, that transformative month, Mr. Speaker. The authorities have advised that relevant articles of the Vienna, Palermo, and Terrorist Financing Conventions have been included in the Anti-Terrorism Bill, which will be introduced in the new Parliament after elections.
Who reported that?
Who reported it? Your colleagues over there. So. The bill is expected to be enacted before September 2015. As such, this recommendation still remains largely outstanding. May 2015, Mr. Speaker, elections were upon our colleagues on the other side. Notice that they have been largely deaf to the entreaties of the CFATF and FATF regime, refusing to implement. So we come now to the ninth follow-up. Our first meeting in relation to this matter. Guyana's ninth follow-up report, published November 2015. The authorities have advised that relevant articles of the Vienna, Palermo, and Terrorist Financing Conventions have been included in the Anti-Terrorism Bill, which will be introduced in the 11th Parliament for passage. As such, this recommendation still remains largely outstanding. Mr. Speaker, this is the same bill that the Honorable Member Teixeira said on the last occasion was a brand new bill. This shows, Mr. Speaker, that this bill was in existence for several years. The requirement was since 2011, and the members on the other side, the honorable members, failed to implement these recommendations, and they never told the public anything. And they never consulted with civil society. They had the bill, and they never sent the bill to the stakeholders. They never followed Article 13. There's nothing like when you're introducing something new. Now that we have introduced true democracy in Ghana, the persons who are erstwhile refusing democracy are calling for democracy left, right, and center. But let the record show, Mr. Speaker, that the PPPC, when in government, created the conditions that now beset this country and which we now have to clean up on this side of the House, the APNU-AFC coalition government. And we will not allow them to prevent us from doing our duty to the Guyanese people. Mr. Speaker, it is because of the last government's many failures to remedy the deficiencies that Ghana, the people just got tired and eventually referred Guyana to FATF. And this happened in 2014. And that's where we had to arrive at an action plan with FATF. And we have 3 of those 8 recommendations that are outstanding. So everything that affects the regime, the AML-CFT regime in this country, must be laid at the foot of the PPPC when in government, Mr. Speaker. I don't know how they're trying to blame this government that is now in office for 7 months. And the very first act this government did was to pass the AML-CFT amendment bill into law.
Because I believe this is the beginning of a debate on this item, it will be true to say that other members are listed for speaking. I wonder if those members do not believe that they can do a good job when their turn comes. I'm sure that they can. So perhaps we'll allow each speaker to say what he or she wishes to say, and then the speakers listed can take ample opportunity to make their respective points. Please proceed, Attorney General.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, this is an abject lesson wherein the members on the other side of this honorable House must learn, they must appreciate now that this nation is no longer interested in playing the games that they want to play with their welfare and well-being. They accuse us of no consultations when we in fact have embarked on consultations. But then they have this bill in possession since 2013, and they never consulted anyone. But they come here and they're trying to tell us that we must do this and we must do that. And I let the record show, Mr. Speaker, that in this parliament, this honorable house, the APNU AFC government has a predisposition towards democracy. Democracy first is our watchword. Democracy first. Now, Mr. Speaker, let me address the bill itself, which ought to have been brought to this honorable house since 2011, but is now here because of this new government. Part 2 of this bill, Mr. Speaker, deals with terrorist offenses and other related activities under the Act. A person who commits a terrorist act shall, on conviction or indictment, be liable to death if such act has resulted in the death of any person, and to a fine of $500,000 together with imprisonment for a maximum of 15 years in any other case. Other offenses include provision of services for the commission of terrorist acts, arrangement for retention of terrorist property, and the recruitment of persons for terrorist purposes. Part 3 establishes as offenses acts intended to endanger the safety of maritime navigation and offenses related to delivering or detonating explosives or other lethal devices. Part 4, Mr. Speaker, deals with the investigation of offenses. A police officer may apply to a judge in chambers for a detention order, and powers given to the Director of Public Prosecutions for an order for the gathering of information. Part 5 deals with the jurisdiction and trial of offenses. There is provision for the applicability of international law for any trial as it relates to terrorist acts. Mr. Speaker, Part 6 provides for the conduct of investigations. There is provision for pretrial measures and for the rights of persons subject to proceedings under the Act. Part 7 is the memorandum I'm dealing with. Part 7 provides for information sharing, extradition, and internal assistance in criminal matters. Part 8, Mr. Speaker, deals with disclosure and sharing of information. Every person who has any information, which I thought it was brand new to you. Any person who will assist in preventing the commission of terrorist acts shall disclose that information to a police officer, and if he fails to do so, commits an offense. Where are you looking at? You shouldn't be looking there. So, Mr. Speaker, being rudely interrupted, the policy of the bill is largely, Mr. Speaker, to inveigh against terrorist acts by persons designed and affected by evil intentions. Part 9 deals with miscellaneous powers. The operator of an aircraft or master of a vessel has a duty to disclose information related to passengers of aircraft or vessel. Part 10 gives effect to certain articles of the International Convention for the Suppression of Financing of Terrorism, the International Convention Against Organized Crime, and the United Nations Convention Against Illicit Traffic in Narcotic Drugs and Psychotropic Substances. Mr. Speaker, this act, it criminalizes the persons who assist another in committing a terrorist act. It criminalizes accessories before the fact, accessories after the fact. It criminalizes aiders and abettors of persons to commit terrorist acts. In addition, and this is going to be very important for the members on the other side, It criminalizes persons who recruit terrorists, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Minister, I am sure that as the presenter of the motion, you would want the motion to be spoken to within the bounds of its intention.
Mr. Speaker, I'm not sure if I have been misinterpreted.
No, the Speaker is
But
quite clear in
my
what...
friends on the other side were saying...
Honorable Minister,
Yes.
the Speaker is quite clear in what he's saying.
Yes, sir.
And he's suggesting that we try to tailor our remarks within the boundaries of what we know we should do.
Yes, sir. I was asked over the other side to get to the policy of the act. And that's why I said this should interest the members over the other side.
All members of the House?
Policy of the act.
You said all members of the House, or I may have misheard you, but I thought...
No, sir.
That's what you meant.
Too. They know that too. They told me to get to the policy. And I was saying, okay, here's the policy. Yes. But, Mr. Speaker, no, there was no evil intentions towards the honorable members on the other side. So, Mr. Speaker, the bill also, this bill before this honorable House, also criminalizes persons who equip and train persons to commit terrorist acts. It criminalizes persons who raises funds, who raises cash to assist a person to commit a criminal act, to organize property and deploy property to assist a person to commit a criminal act. Need I go on, Mr. Speaker? Because I was asked to talk about the policy of the act. So, Mr. Speaker, just so that it won't be a problem of density, this act, Mr. Speaker, this act, Mr. Speaker, comes in a very timely manner. A very timely manner. And so this nation must show that it sets its face against terrorism, terrorist acts, and terrorists. That is what this nation must do. And everyone in this country and in this honorable House must provide a united front against extremism. That's what we are demanding on this side of the House. And so, Mr. Speaker, just so that the record shows in my introduction of this bill to this honorable House, at this point, I will stop so that I could hear the responses of the honorable members, and so I could deal with those responses properly when I wrap up the debate. And so we will ask that, as I said earlier, that the members all the members of this honorable House, including the members on the other side of this House, that they support this bill and the passage of this bill through this honorable House, Mr. Speaker. Thank you very much.